Good morning. This is the second Sunday in October. The service is dedicated to those who passed away in the month of October. And I just earlier read those that have passed from our midst in the month of October. There are quite a few of them, according to my list here, 11 of them. I trust you're all well and keeping safe. Mrs. Nakasone and I and keeping safe. And we haven't seen Sayaka for a while. In person, we communicate weekly over FaceTime or thereabouts. But anyway, we haven't seen you for over a year now. I hope you're all and keeping safe. I just want to say a few words about Shotsuki Hoyo and of remembering. Shotsuki Hoyo, of course, is a time and occasion for us to remember and recall our relatives or our friends and relatives who have passed away. Remembering is very important. Some may say it's nostalgic and reminiscing, but this is reminiscing good, and remembering is very good. When we remember, we call to mind those that are no longer with us, but when we remember means that we take time off from a busy schedule to recall and to express our appreciation and gratitude for those who have preceded us. And today I want to be speaking about flowers. But usually in October is a very quiet, except for the 31st of October when we have Halloween and we have a lot of carousing around of children. With the autumn equinox that happened or transpired on the 22nd of September, the days have become shorter and the nights increasingly longer. 6 months from now, with the spring equinox, the days will become longer and the nights increasingly shorter. The ancients were extremely sensitive to this annual cycle. Buddhists mark the spring equinox with the Higan services. Higan is a time of year when it is neither too hot nor too cold. It is of equanimity and the ideal time to contemplate the Dharma. The equinox welcomes autumn, its fall colors, and when farmers are busy with their harvest. I look to the ripening persimmons, to apple cider, and the color of pumpkins. While living in Kyoto, we looked forward to Matsutake hikuri chestnuts, and yudofu hot pot. Here in Northern California, the seasons are not quite in sync with Kyoto, but a sure sign of autumn is that my chrysanthemums are starting to bloom. This morning, I want to briefly reflect on flowers. Flowers bloom and flowers wither and fall. Literally, this eternal cycle is repeated by the intergenerational rituals that are observed by the Japanese community. I wrote about the meaning and significance of these rituals. These articles are posted on the temples. A flower is a powerful symbol. The lotus, for example, represents Buddhism. But more to the point, flowers express a whole range of sentiments. They can embody our grief as well as our optimism. Flowers are offered at funerals and gravesites. Bouquets appeared on roadsides where someone has lost his or her life in an accident. When Princess Diana died, thousands upon thousands of bouquets were placed at the gates of Buckingham. Flowers also appear at celebratory and auspicious occasions: birth, marriages, graduation, exhibition openings. In Hawaii, visitors are welcomed with a flower lei. When we left the islands, we were draped with flowers. We delight in receiving flowers. We also enjoy giving them. Flowers express love and as well as grief. 10 years ago, on March 11, 2011, more than 10 years ago, Tohoku, the region north of Tokyo, experienced a devastating tsunami. To the morale of the survivors, the song Hana Wasaku, Flowers Will Bloom, appeared. Hana Wasaku was of a collaboration between Kano Yoko, who composed the music, and Iwai Shunji, who wrote the lyrics. Kano is best known for anime soundtracks. Her melody for this song, Hana Wasaku, is energetic, uplifting. Iwai, a film director, video artist, and documentarian, is from the city of Sendai, which suffered grievous destruction. Given voice to the sentiments of the survivors, his lyrics are nostalgic for those who were lost and what has vanished, and expresses hope for the future. Iwai's lyrics crystallize these feelings through the metaphor of the flower. Both the melody and the lyrics are haunting. The themes in Flowers Will Bloom are larger than life, but they're and simple, heartfelt sentiments of a single individual. The enormity of the tsunami experience is related to the voice of one individual who sings of yearning and despair, of profound loss, yet holding out the possibility of the future. These are universal themes. the original Japanese Hanawasaku is replete. The Japanese sense of nostalgia tinged with melancholy. The refrain speaks of the legacy of those and of the survivors. I cribbed most of the English translation off the internet. The first verse sets the tone of Hanawasaku. The spring wind blows softly over the snow-covered road. I remember that nostalgic old town. The key expressions are natsukashi and omoidasu. Natsukashi means nostalgia, which does not appear in the original Japanese in the above verse. Omoidasu is to recall or to bring to mind. These expressions reflect the Japanese delight in reminiscing. Japanese classical literature and pop culture are filled with romantic nostalgia, especially for furusato or hometown, and of what might have been. Furusato appears as machi in the above verse, which is rendered old town. The Japanese, as we all are often wistful for the road not taken. Natsukashi and omoidasu appear again in now I miss those people, my dear old friends. 今はただ懐かしい人を思い出す. In verse 3, the lyrics recall the voices of friends singing, their faces and smiles that mask their sorrow and pain. This is a direct reference to the survivors. This verse is a direct reference to the survivors who Iwai spoke to in the immediate aftermath of the tsunami that destroyed villages and swallowed many lives. He must have perceived the determination and hope through their smiles, their painful smiles. These lines are even more poignant 10 years on. During this interval, the survivors' lives, their homes, and their communities. Many remain missing and will most likely never be recovered. The refrain, however, is very hopeful. Flowers will bloom. Oh yes, they will, for who are yet to be born someday. For you who are yet to be born. What have I left for you? These words speak of some future time when flowers will bloom for those who are yet to be born. Itsuka umareru kimi ni. The last line speaks of the legacy of those who were lost and of us. What have I left for you? I surmise that the I, watashi, refers to either or both, to those who have perished and to the survivors. What did either of them bequeath to those who did not experience that tsunami? When Iwai interviewed the survivors, he was impressed with their resilience and with their resolve to reestablish their lives and rebuild their communities. Their testimony speaks not only of memories of those who perished and of their hometown, but of fortitude and optimism for the future. I believe he identified with their aspirations and regrets when he penned the words, "Be the sorrow and pain." What might be the legacy of those who perished with the tsunami? This is a question that preoccupies ministers who must find hope and promise with every passing. For a person that has lived a full and productive life, this question is easy. For what of infants and children? Iwai hit on a most appropriate metaphor, the flowers. The flower symbolizes both the past and the future. Just as a flower blooms from a seed, blossoms sprout the seeds for the future, for future generation of flowers. And those who perish too young to make a substantial contribution to the community, their lives represent optimism of what might have been. Hope is the enduring legacy of children. We must not forget their laughter and the promise they once held. The refrain is a reminder that we must hold on to the promise of children and of unreachable ideals. Flowers are symbols of a brighter and more bountiful future. That flowers foretell a better tomorrow might have inspired the Okinawan rock musician Kina Kichi to compose the lyrics of Hana. すべての人の心に花を Flowers bloom in everyone's heart is a favorite anti-war, anti-military base movement in Okinawa. Kina's hana is a plaintive appeal to have flowers bloom in the hearts of all people. The lyrics are wistful plea that the gentleness and beauty of flowers will soften humanity's bellicose behavior. Refrain, someday, someday, itsu no hika, itsu no hika. Let's have flowers bloom in heart. Hana o sakasou yo. Crystallize the fervent yearning of the Okinawan for peace and the end of all wars, and more immediately for the U.S. military to leave island home. Evoking the beauty of blooming flowers, Kina hopes that this image will moderate humanity's attempt for aggression and destruction in resolving conflicts. Continuing, Kina asks, where that is humanity heading to? Where are rivers flowing to? Where are people traveling to? Kina does not answer the question, but he wishes that before people reach their destination, by the time those flows reach their destination, let us welcome blooming flowers, those blooming flowers. The gist of Hana is to transform our hearts and minds, a very Buddhist notion. Hana writes, let us bloom flowers in our hearts. In our hearts. A few verses later, Kina sings, Hana o kamo yo. Let reach for these flowers. This is a plaintive plea, however improbable to reach, for the cessation of armed conflict. Hana wasaku and hana subete no kokoro ni hana o employ the metaphor of flower to offer hope and determination for the future. Saku is intended to bolster the spirit of the survivors of the 3/11 tsunami. It recounts memories of the past and the determination of the survivors. The wreckage wrought by the giant waves was compounded by the meltdown of the nuclear power facility on the Fukushima coast, which forced the evacuation of entire villages. Because of the radiation levels, some areas are still off limits. Hana すべての人の心に花を is a resolve to end war by having flowers bloom in the hearts of humankind. However fragile hope for peace may be, it is important to move to that ideal. My reflections have introduced to you a deeper appreciation for flowers. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida